When Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was announced as simply just the sequel to Breath of the Wild, I was definitely excited but also a little worried. Not particularly that they would mess this up, as Zelda is a franchise that rarely misses, but more so, I was worried if it would be able to match the near perfection that is Breath of the Wild, or if it would fall on its own ambitions. However, after playing Tears of the Kingdom for over a week now, I'm happy to say that this somehow, someway, makes Breath of the Wild feel like a goddamn first draft of what an open world Zelda really had in store. And by the way, you might have noticed that I said played the game for over a week and not finished the game, and that is because while Tears of the Kingdom certainly does have a beginning, middle, and end, there is way too much to do. So while I am going to structure this video like a review and give it a score at the end, this is from the perspective of someone who played the game for over a week and has played through the story, but definitely not seen everything that this game has to offer because, I mean, well, I only have so much time. And one last disclaimer regarding spoilers, this is a mostly spoiler-free review. I say mostly because the game has been out for over a week now, so I will be touching on some things early on in the game, but when it comes to the story and certain mechanics, it's spoiler-free. I even tried to make sure that most of my gameplay was from earlier on in the game. Anyways, let's get into this. But before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will turn you into a Korok and strand you. The good. Damn, where do I even begin? I know you want to hear me gush about the size of the world in Tears of the Kingdom, but I'll save that for last. I'll start off with the visuals. I know it's the same visual style as Breath of the Wild, but the cel-shaded art style of Tears of the Kingdom gives it a distinct identity, and visually, it's absolutely stunning when you consider that you're playing this game on the Switch. This should not even work on the Switch, and there are some hiccups that I'll get to later, but it's a 95% smooth experience. There are also some new mechanics in the game, a lot of which were in the trailers, and they are all really cool. Some new abilities include Ultra Hand, which lets you pick up items and attach them to each other, Fuse, which lets you combine two objects together and let you use them as a weapon, Ascend, which lets you morph through platforms and ceilings above you, Recall, which lets you rewind objects, and of course Amiibo, which obviously lets you scan amiibos. And a little side note, my favorite use of amiibos in games is definitely Smash, and my second favorite is definitely Mario Maker, but this is probably my third favorite. There are other abilities that you unlock too, but I won't talk about them for reasons. There is also the Paraglider, which is obviously back from Breath of the Wild, and gliding around is so cool. There's also the gameplay. I always felt Tears of the Kingdom, and I guess Breath of the Wild as well, is almost like a Souls-like game in regards to its combat, as while it's not difficult like those games, some of the enemies and bosses remind me of Soulsborne games in a good way. There are certain mechanics like parrying and dodging that you have to get down, something of which I haven't really done if you look at my gameplay. Not to mention, when not in combat, running around as Link just feels so smooth. The feel and movement is enough to make you just want to run around this whole world for hours, and again, I'll get to the world in a bit. Another thing that Tears of the Kingdom does very well is its story. While Legend of Zelda has always had a rich and expansive lore, Breath of the Wild was the first game to really tap into that, but even then, you kinda had to search for the story in that game. But in Tears of the Kingdom, the story is way more fleshed out and more of a focal point. Not that it wasn't a big deal in Breath of the Wild, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it's even better. While there was a twist towards the end that I saw coming from a mile away, it definitely makes sense story-wise. Zelda has also rarely missed when it comes to the music, so it should come as no surprise that Tears of the Kingdom has an amazing soundtrack, but it might be one of the best soundtracks in the entire franchise. The songs don't necessarily slap, like they're not fiery like some other Zelda songs, but a lot of them are beautifully orchestrated songs, and that main theme, alright, that one slaps, alright? I can listen to that over and over and over again. I also don't usually touch on the sound design of games unless it's really worth mentioning. And in the case of Tears of the Kingdom, the sound design is unmatched. From the sound of jumping into the water to detaching items, I think you genuinely have some award-winning sound design here. And now we have gotten to the world, the size of this game, and oh my god. If there is one word I can use to describe this game, I mean, I was gonna say it's massive, but I don't think that does it justice. The world of Breath of the Wild is already mind-blowing. Tears of the Kingdom could have easily just taken Breath of the Wild and made some improvements to make a phenomenal game even phenomenal-er. That's a word. We've seen many video game sequels take an already stellar first entry and improve it upon it in every possible way. Some that come to mind are God of War Ragnarok, Red Dead Redemption 2, Mass Effect 2, Portal 2, just to name a few. Tears of the Kingdom could have easily just done what those sequels did, but they weren't content with that, and so Tears of the Kingdom doesn't double the size of Breath of the Wild, it triples it. And that's not hyperbole, by the way. Tears of the Kingdom quite literally triples the world of Breath of the Wild. There is the main ground of Hyrule, lots to do all around. It is more or less the same as Breath of the Wild, but it is so big that it's easy to forget that two different areas that look nothing alike are within the same map, and if you really want to, you can just walk to a different hemisphere. Obviously, there is a horse you can ride on, and there is a fast travel feature, which I recommend you use, but simply running around from point A to point B might take a while, but it just shows you how huge this world is. And to add to the size of the world, there are many shrines, and I mean a lot of shrines. And each of them are really cool and a lot of fun. They basically teach you certain ways to solve puzzles and progress in the game, which I think is cool. And each of them give you a light of blessing, which you can use to get more heart containers and stamina vessels. But hold on, did I say that Tears of the Kingdom is quite literally triple the size of Breath of the Wild? Well, I haven't talked about the sky area yet. This isn't a spoiler because they made a big deal about it in the marketing. Even the box has Link in the sky, but actually playing the sky sections of the game, once again, it reminds you of just how big this world is. The fact that you could just be up in the sky, drop down carefully, and end up on the main ground, this whole other massive world, is amazing. And you can tell that the sky is very much detailed. But if that's not enough, and this is a slight spoiler, but it's a pretty significant part of the game, and you do go to it very early on, and that is that in addition to the main section and the sky section, there is an entire underground section that is also massive. The fact of the matter is, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is so big, you can spend your first 10 hours and not even really start the first main objective. And also, I'm not even that much of a side quests kind of guy. I like to play the main story objectives in games, but I got lost with some of the side quests. Hell, I got lost not even really doing anything, just exploring this world. There's so much to do, and the crazy thing is, you can do it in whatever order you want. If you really want to, you can go right to the final boss at the beginning of the game and fight him with 3 hearts, a tree branch, and no armor. I don't recommend you do that unless you are stupid good, but the fact that that is an option proves that there is no wrong way to play this game. And similarly, in all the puzzles you solve, there is no right or wrong way. Everyone who plays this game will have a different experience because you can play the game in whatever order you want, solving puzzles however you'd like. There are very few games that offer the player this much freedom and that manage to be so big that it makes Breath of the goddamn Wild feel small. A sentence I never thought I would say, but Tears of the Kingdom did it.
This strange gloom keeps getting thicker.
Moving on to the mixed, these are things that aren't good, aren't bad, they are just mixed. There could also be issues surrounding the game as opposed to an issue with the game itself, or in this case, something to be aware of. And In the case of Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like people who didn't like Breath of the Wild won't really like this game. I know Breath of the Wild was massively critically acclaimed and beloved by most people, but the fact of the matter is, not everyone loved this version of Zelda and how much of a departure it was. So if you didn't dig Breath of the Wild, I'm not sure if Tears of the Kingdom will change your mind. That being said, I have heard from people who didn't like Breath of the Wild say that they do like Tears of the Kingdom, so honestly, it's up to you. But a lot of the mechanics, like the breaking weapons and the stamina stuff and all that, yeah, they're back, and they're not changed that much. I never found the breaking weapons that much of an issue, because the more you progress, the better weapons you get, and you have to be smart when you use them. But the fact of the matter is, not everyone loved that, and that's present in this game. So just something to be aware of. On to the bad, and the only real issue I have worth noting is the frame rate dips. Now let me be clear, I see frame rates as almost like a superficial element of a game. It never bothered me once that this game runs at 30 FPS, because honestly, that's all jargon to me. What isn't jargon to me though is when the frame rate noticeably dips. Now let me be clear, again, I sound repetitive, but let me be clear, it's not like a game like Redfall, where it becomes sickening. The game is still very much playable, but the frame rate drops are noticeable. However, they don't ruin the game for me.
Okay, now where have you been? Linky, you're not a ghost, are you? Hey, that looks interesting.
The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is nothing short of a miracle. It had two tall orders: be at least as good or as big as Breath of the Wild, and run on the Switch. And while it does suffer from occasional frame rate drops, this is a game that not only meets those expectations and orders, but far exceeds them. I already know that I will be playing this game for years, probably discovering things I've never seen, maybe even visiting shrines that I didn't even know were there. How Tears of the Kingdom manages to be triple the size of Breath of the Wild and run mostly smooth on the Switch is something that should not be possible, yet here it is. And really, if you have a game where the only issue I have with it is that there are some frame rate dips, you have an amazing game. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a game that we certainly do not deserve, and that's why it gets a 10 out of 10. If you guys have a Switch, I think you owe it to yourself to buy this game. I know it's $70, but I think we can stop that debate, because this game might even be worth more than $70. But that's my opinion on Tears of the Kingdom. What do you guys think? Have you been playing this game? Do you guys like it? Do you guys not like it? Do you have it? Do you not have it? And if you don't have it, do you guys want it? Do you not want it? Anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, or I will turn you into a Korok and then strand you. Bye!